Okay, this is a lesson on stem changing verbs, or in español, verbos con cambios de raíz. So a few essential questions. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to answer each of these. 1, what is a stem changing verb? 2, what changes when there is a stem change? What are some stem changing verbs that we already know? What are the categories of stem changing verbs? Which forms change and which do not? And are there any irregularities on top of the stem change? So to start, what are some different terms for this in English? You might see stem changing verbs, but another popular way to refer to these are shoe verbs or boot verbs, and we're going to see why in just a minute. So what is a stem change? It's a vowel change that happens when you conjugate these particular verbs. That vowel change always occurs in the next to last syllable. And in your textbook, you will know if a verb is a stem changing verb because it will have the vowel change in parentheses. So you might see pedir, parentheses I, and that lets you know that it is an E to I stem changing verb. So why are these called boot or shoe verbs? Well, if you set up your traditional conjugation chart with each of your 6 levels, your first person, second person, third person, singular, plural, you'll notice that the forms that stem change create a little boot or shoe. So with these verbs, not all 6 conjugations have the stem change. The yo form normally will. The to form has the stem change. Él, ella, usted will have the stem change. Ellos, ellas, ustedes. But nosotros and vosotros do not. They maintain the original vowel. They do not have the change. And we'll see an example in just a moment. So if we set it up like this, you can see the visual. Here's our boot. Here's our traditional conjugation chart, and you can see the yo form, to form, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, all fit within the shoe, but nosotros and vosotros fall outside of it. So this is just a mnemonic device, a way to remember that nosotros, vosotros do not get the stem change. So what are some stem changing verbs? These are all from our current chapter. And there are 4 basic categories. For present tense stem changes, these are the only categories you will see. We have E to IE, O to UE, E to I, or U to UE. And so far, these are the verbs that we've seen that have these changes. This is not an all-encompassing list. There are more verbs in these first 3 categories. However, the only U to UE verb is jugar. So we've seen these. These are in our chapter. You need to know the meanings of these verbs, but you also need to memorize what type of stem change they have. There's no easy way to know automatically which type of stem change it will be. It's just a memorization piece. So whenever you learn these new verbs, pay attention to what's in parentheses because that will tell you which category they fall in. It is always the same category. So E to IE, we have comenzar, pensar, preferir, querer, venir, cerrar, etc. And it will be the next to last syllable that has the change. So if the word only has one E, it's pretty simple to see where the stem change happens. However, with a verb like preferir, where there are 2 E's, you need to remember the next to last syllable rule. So we start at the end with the IR and we jump 1 back, and so we know that the stem change happens on the second E, not the first. And that's going to apply to empezar, entender, and any verb that has multiple syllables, multiple E's, you need to do the next to last syllable. O to UE, we have a few examples, and same thing, next to last syllable. All of these just happen to have one O, so there's not too much confusion there. For E to I, also same principle, next to last syllable, and we have decir, pedir, servir. There are more, but that's all you're accountable for right now. So let's look at some examples of how these work. We're going to take 2 different types of stem changes, comenzar, dormir, and we're going to look at the process. So we start with the infinitive, comenzar, and then we're going to drop that middle E and add in IE instead. So it looks like this. We get comienz with our stem. So then what do? Well, we use the appropriate ending based on our subject. So we're going to conjugate using the normal AR endings. Those do not change, but it will depend upon our subject. So if we have yo, the ending we know is o, so the full conjugation will be yo comienzo. And the stem change is represented here in the middle. Dormir, same exact process. You just have a different stem change. So we start with the infinitive, we drop the O, we add in UE, and we get duerm. And then, based on the subject, we will add the appropriate ending to fully conjugate. So in this case, tú duermes. And the endings, once again, are the same. ER, IR, present tense endings, we're going to use as we would for any other verb. And then AR verbs, we use the same set of endings, but they have this special stem change in the conjugation. So how do you know when and where to stem change? We've talked about this, but you have to memorize which verbs will stem change. And it is a set group of verbs. It's not haphazard, it's predetermined, and your textbook will give you the parentheses symbol to let you know when there is a stem change in the present tense. If the verb is a stem changer, like I said, the change always happens with the next to last syllable. So we looked at dormir. Here are some others in each category. The vowel in red is the vowel that would change. So that next to last syllable, next to last syllable, next to last, next to last. This is particularly important for these longer verbs that have 3 or 4 syllables. And with jugar, it's the only one with U to UE, but it's the next to last syllable, all the same. So let's look at some examples, all of the 6 conjugations, and pay attention to the nosotros, vosotros, because they do not change. So querer, E to IE, it's the verb to want. So yo quiero, tú quieres, él, ella, usted quiere. Nosotros queremos, no change. We keep the E, there's no I. Vosotros queréis, and ellos, ellas, ustedes quieren. Okay, and this graphic left off the usted, ustedes, but you can see it, it's a little small. On the second graphic, they did include that. Usted, ustedes are still in that third person. So same forms, this is just a different way to see the shoe analogy. So quiero, quieres, quiere, queremos, queréis, quieren. And these all have the change, but nosotros, vosotros do not. That's an E to IE example. O to UE, puedo, puedes, puede, podemos, podés, pueden. So change for these 4, but no change for these 2. For a U to UE, jugar, and listen carefully to the pronunciation, juego, juegas, juega, jugamos, jugáis, juegan. And there's a reminder there, remember vosotros is the plural, informal you all that we only use in Spain. If you're in Latin America and you want to say you all, you use the ustedes form. And in E to I, decir, the verb to say or tell, we have digo, dices, dice, decimos, decís, dicen. So notice all of these have the stem change, but nosotros, vosotros do not. And also, notice decir has an irregular yo form. And that still applies. If a verb has an irregular yo form, you stick with that first. It may or may not have the stem change. So that will depend. For example, tener is a stem changing verb, but the yo form is tengo. It's special. Decir is digo. Venir is vengo. So decir has the stem change, but tener and venir do not. So remember, for those go verbs, they might be a stem changer as well. So, thinking back, can you answer all of the essential questions? Can you define what a stem-changing verb is, where the stem change occurs? Can you tell what some stem-changing verbs are? Can you list them? Can you identify the categories? Can you identify which 2 forms do not stem change? And are there any irregularities? Go on to Whipple Hill and take the video check quiz to make sure that you can answer all of these questions. If you have other questions, you can email, come to help session, or present them in class. Gracias por tu atención. Adiós, hasta luego.